Hello, I'm Georgia Shakti-Hill, and I do want to welcome you to Living in Balance. Our program today is called Take Charge of Your Life, and it's really in two parts. The first part, we're going to talk about all those practical things that you have to remember that will bring you back to joy, peace, health, and abundance, whether we're talking about relationship or health or money. But then in the second half of the program, we're going to talk about things that used to be considered esoteric. We're going to take a little bit of the mystery out of the mystery schools. Come join us. Now, who can accomplish this? How many guests do I have? Well, I have one, and she is very special. Her name is Patricia Diane Costa-Robles, and it is really an honor to have her with us, so welcome.
Well, thank you, Shakti. It's wonderful to be here.
And I have been admiring your work over the internet now for quite some time, and so I thought how wonderful to have this opportunity for you to come and meet with our audience and share. And I looked at this wealth of information. If we had all your books here, they couldn't see us. But we have tapes and books, and you have been sharing basically the message is take charge of your life, and we have to do that first before we can move on to all those other wonderful spiritual things.
Okay, that's great.
You agree with that one?
Sure, that's perfect.
Okay, well, we start with self-mastery and self-awareness. As I was reading your book, Take Charge of Your Life, you said, first of all, in order for us to have self-mastery, we have to really know who we are.
Right. Fulfilling the divine plan for each and every one of us is really just regaining what we've lost and the things that we have forgotten about. One of the things that's important for each of us to know is that our thoughts and feelings are creative. Every world religion has tried to tell us that we reap what we sow, or when we cast our bread upon the water it returns, or the law of the circle, or an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But we've kind of really forgotten that this really means every thought, word, action, or feeling that we're experiencing.
Well, you call it the law of the circle. And I like that. I hadn't heard that before, but that's really all that we give is given to ourselves, just all those things you just said. And energy follows thought.
Right. What goes around comes around.
Okay. So we have to remember that. And that is empowering, isn't it?
Right. It certainly is.
And one thing that I think about, too, is it also insists that we become responsible.
Right.
We do.
And it takes a lot of effort when we've gotten into the habit of just letting the thoughts muddle through our mind. You know, if we pay attention to what we're thinking, we'll be amazed at how many times we're energizing negative patterns that we don't want to be energizing, such as I'm poor, I can't afford it, I don't have enough money, or I'm tired, or I'm sick, or I'm miserable in my relationship, or I hate my job. All of these things are really negative affirmations, but we empower and create them and sustain them with those thought patterns.
And affirmations, that is really one of those techniques. And we have to remind ourselves, see, these things we've shared with my audience before, but we sometimes forget. And we have to be reminded, especially when things are maybe not going perfectly, okay, in our lives. So perhaps it is just that affirmation, and you have all sorts of affirmations that you use in the book, and you want them all to start with, I am. And that, you said, is like the symbol also of Om?
Yes, it's a code word that tunes us in on the masculine and feminine polarity of God, of all there is, whatever term we want to call for that all-encompassing presence of divinity. I comes from Alpha, meaning the one or the beginning. Am comes from Omega. And when we say I am, just like when the burning bush spoke to Moses and said, I am that I am Alpha, I am Omega, I am the beginning, I am the ending. It tunes us in to the all-encompassing energy, vibration, and consciousness of divinity. And then anything we affirm after that has to carry that vibration. So if we're saying I am sick, then whatever that, the energy coming forth from us carries the vibration of being sick. And affirmations, our thoughts are creative anyway. The importance of affirmations are that we're beginning to remind ourselves. Instead of I am magnetizing abundance into my life, I am financially free, I am vibrantly healthy, the more we energize this program into the intelligence of our vehicles and our bodies and our mind and consciousness, the more we begin acting out of that paradigm and experiencing that and expressing it in our daily lives.
And it also puts it in the now, because it is right now. When you're saying I am, that is like right now. It's not I'm going to be,
right.
I want to be,
right.
but I am.
Right.
Okay, so that's the affirming part. Also in attaining goals, and you and I talked about this before we went on camera because I thought it was very important. You use creative visualization, but I had asked you about one of the things. You take a step-by-step, a wonderful process of goal setting, and sometimes we need to do that. And sometimes we need that kind of a focus. But I asked you, I said about sharing it with other people, because you don't recommend that necessarily, that we maybe hold the goal to us rather than having everyone know what we want to do.
Right. When we think about our goals being these very fragile matrices and archetypes that we are forming, and if we start telling people about it that maybe feel threatened by that, like if we're sharing something with our family that they're not sure they want us to do, or someone that they're afraid we're going to leave them behind if we attain this goal, they may be sending negative thought forms. They're like lightning bolts dissipating the matrix that we're forming. If you're working with a partner in something that you know that you're really in alignment in wanting the same thing, that's different. Then you energize the same thing. But to share it with people that aren't in alignment, or you're not sure if they're in alignment or want you to succeed, can actually undermine your efforts.
And that made sense to me, because I've thought about that as far as dissipating the energy. But when we're talking again, and you just talk about energy so much, is that any energy coming in then can block too. So you want to have everything focused in the powerful.
And it's easy to place your vision in a force field of protection too, but then you don't want to sabotage yourself by undoing the protection by dissipating the energy.
And that takes us to the next thing, which we can transmute negatives. And you have a process that we can use, or 4 activities that we can go through. And with that, to transmute negatives in our lives. And what are we talking about when we're talking about the negatives anyhow?
We're talking about anything that conflicts with the highest divine intent of our lives. So poverty, disease, aging and death as we know it, dysfunctional family relationships, anything that isn't manifesting as heaven on earth in our lives is a human miscreation.
Now, the first thing you suggest is acceptance. And what are we supposed to accept?
What we accept is that this particular experience, somehow, somewhere, some time frame, we have released the energy, vibration, and consciousness that has magnetized this into our life. So it moves us out of that victim consciousness where we feel that we are, being bombarded by this negativity, and it's not our fault and there's nothing we can do about it. If we just say, even if it's somebody, a drunk driver runs a red light, and for all intents and purposes it looks like we're perfectly innocent, if we just say, okay, for some reason, somewhere along the line, I need to go through this as a learning experience, so how can I handle it with the highest good of all concerned?
I always love that. Why did I create this? Yes. But that's that empowering part, the taking responsibility. So that's the acceptance. And then gratitude. Now we're supposed to have gratitude for this negative thing in our lives. Okay? That means we have to be kind of grown up about it, don't we?
Right. And that's building on what we've already known. So if we say, okay, there's a car accident, say, okay, somewhere along the line I've created this learning experience. So the gratitude is that we're going to be able to transmute the energy and complete that so we don't have to go through it again. Okay. We're not grateful that we've had a car accident. We're grateful for the opportunity to heal and learn from that experience so that we can move forward to more joyous lives.
Show me the gift in this.
Okay.
Right?
Yes,
I mean, that's the idea. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, the forgiveness. Whom do we forgive?
We forgive ourselves for having misqualified the energy in the first place. We forgive the person that ran the red light, that ran into our car, all aspects of that. And we don't, see, this can be so the microcosm of the macrocosm, and we can say, I ask forgiveness for whatever created this. Every thought, word, action, or feeling, known or unknown, from any time frame or dimension, whatever manifested this experience, I ask to transmute and forgive every electron of energy associated with it.
Okay, so that is really asking to shift the energy, to totally shift it and take off all of this feeling that we have, the emotion that's negative and fearful and all those kinds of things.
Right, and we don't even have to know the specifics of what created it. All we need to know is, okay, this is the experience I'm going through now.
Okay, and then the fourth one is, gosh, that word love. We do have to get back to that, do we not?
Right, we have to love the energy free. We can't, there's no cancel, eliminating it. There's no hating it, there's no repressing it. And this is a consciousness that we're really beginning to understand now. We used to think that like even in Eastern philosophies, we'd lay on beds of nails and do extreme fasting, and it was the mortification of the flesh to kill and separate from the physical to attain the divine. Now we know there is no separation, and so we have to love and lift up everything, and that's what we're doing.
Remember that love. Okay.
Right.
As that underlying feeling. Now, one thing that will block many people is prosperity, and you have created a book and a tape for financial freedom. What is like a bottom line on that when people are experiencing poverty and they just can't get that job they want, they can't get that flow of money into their lives? What is going on?
Well, what it is poverty consciousness, and that again, even if you don't think you've energized it in this particular time frame, somewhere along the line, we've energized the consciousness of lack and limitation, or we wouldn't be experiencing it, because the flow of God's abundance is limitless and is always available to us. So what we need to do is begin monitoring our thoughts. How many times a day do we think, I'm poor, I can't afford it, I don't have any money? And when people take a scratch tally of that, just those thoughts a day that are dealing with financial problems, they will realize that a tremendous amount of their energy goes into sustaining poverty consciousness. Now, we are really, as we're understanding quantum physics, we're understanding more and more about the critical mass consciousness. And this is a universal law that is applicable to every experience that we are in, that there is an amount of energy that's manifesting as poverty. And when we begin working with forgiveness and acceptance and transmutation and gratitude to transmute the negativity and begin energizing positive thoughts of abundance. The second, the energy energizing abundance is 51% of the mass. That is the critical mass, and that shifts, and we start manifesting the abundance.
Wonderful.
And we never know how close we are to that, so we need to not give up.
Until we get to the 51%.
Yes, until we get to that
Okay, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we are going to talk about the divine plan. And if you are just joining us, I'm Georgia Shakti-Hill. My guest is Patricia Diane Costa-Robles. And we have talked about some of those basic things we have to be reminded of every once in a while so that our life runs rather smoothly. But what I've promised you in this second half, we're going to take some of the mystery out of the mystery school. And what I meant by this was, I said, Patty, I think of you as a modern mystic. And she said, well, we all now are the modern mystics. And is that part of it?
That's right.
Okay,
That's
so
really
it's no longer hidden. It's
Right.
out there.
Right. My perception is that there really is no such thing as esoteric anymore. For so long, the consciousness of humanity was so buried by our human egos and on our struggle for life that the sacred divine truths coming forth had to be really cloaked and veiled in all of this very complicated language and taught just through the mystery schools to protect it so that it wouldn't be desecrated really by the outer consciousness. But now there has been such a shift in humanity's consciousness that we've really reached a critical mass in the awakening process, and there's no such thing as esoteric. All of the divine information pouring forth from the realms of illumined truth is available to every man, woman, and child on the planet. But
I did say some of you are a little bit ahead of the rest of us, and we have all of these books that you have written which are sharing this wonderful information. And I really feel that there are messages that I have received from you over the internet, through your newsletter and so forth, that I think help each of us to take a few more steps along our own personal, individual, spiritual path. Now, one of the tapes that you have created is called The Unfolding the Divine Plan?
The Unfolding Divine Plan,
Okay. Tell me about that.
This is a series of tapes. I had written the book, What on Earth is Going On, and it's documented the awakening and the activities of light taking place on the planet and the information coming from the higher realms. And the Unfolding Divine Plan tape series is like continuing sharing the information of the activities of light taking place. And the whole intent, my direction from the higher realms has been to share this information as a beacon of hope and encouragement for these very wondrous but challenging times, to put things in perspective so that we can see, contrary to outer appearances, when it looks like things are so chaotic, that there really is this miraculous unfolding divine plan that is succeeding beyond the greatest expectations of heaven.
Well, you are writing and sharing on the tapes as if it is your personal journal of each day that something profound and wonderful happens, and how much closer we are to the light and our healing. And it's really kind of neat, because I think if each of us were looking at our lives as a spiritual experience and remembering and thinking of it in that way, we could be looking for those wonderful things that are happening.
Right. What I am sharing is the experiences and activities of light I have personally been through, and what I say consistently is that this is just one thread in the overall tapestry, that each and every one of us is participating in these activities of light. And the divine intent of my information is just to help people get the idea that they can perceive these things in their own lives too.
Well, I was reading your newsletter, and it is called Take Charge of Your Life. And one thing that I just always like to remind myself of that you had said is that we should be paying attention to what is going on in the universe, because those are messages that are coming to us. Then you wrote this wonderful experience that you had dancing waltz with your husband, and it was the Blue Danube, I believe, and that is the energy of Saint Germain. And so it was this whole idea of the male and female energy and the circling, and it was, I thought, wow. Now see, you looked at this experience from such a spiritual perspective.
And it's happening with all of our lives. You know, even when you're going through the grocery store and you hear a very spiritual or special song to you coming through the muzak, you know, listen to those things, pay attention. That's what this was. This was the muzak coming through a hotel that was the Blue Danube Waltz, which is Saint Germain's keynote. And we need to consciously just pay attention. What that helps us do is really recognize the incredible support we have from on high for the unfolding divine plan and what we're going through. And it also helps us to put things in perspective, because an important thing to really understand is that this is the time biblically that was referred to as the time of the screaming and the gnashing of the teeth, because as the light of God flows through us, awakening our spiritual faculties and moving us into a higher level of consciousness, it pushes everything that conflicts with that divine purpose, which is heaven on earth, to the surface. So it looks from outer appearances as though everything's being exacerbated, and divine abundance is flowing into the planet. So it pushes all poverty consciousness to the surface and kind of manifests then as lack and limitation until we heal it and transmute it. But these things are coming up to be healed, not to take us down the tubes.
And you did mention, too, in your writing, that if something really bad is going on in your life, you think about it as, oh, you know, can I really deal with this? Can I handle this? And it is if we are allowed to then, as you had us go through those 4 steps and so forth, experience this because we were ready, because we can handle it, and because it was just time to clear another thing in our life.
Right. And sometimes it's not only at this particular time, this is such an urgency of the hour for this awakening and ascension process that the earth is going through, is sometimes it's not even just our own stuff. Sometimes, for instance, we might have connected with a dysfunctional relationship, because by the awakening we have and how we're healing that, we're raising the vibration of dysfunctional relationships for the entire consciousness. It's like the microcosm of the macrocosm. As I am lifted up, all life is lifted up with me. So sometimes it's actually compounded by healing and lifting up the consciousness of dysfunctional relationships until those people that are having them awaken enough to do it for themselves. We're all our brother and sister's keeper at this particular moment.
So each time we clear something, each time we move beyond and we choose love instead of fear and so forth, then we are doing it for everybody on the planet.
Absolutely.
That's that connectedness.
It's all interrelated, and we can't lift up one electron of energy without it lifting up the entire universal collective of energy.
And again, we're back to this concept of the energy and the flow of it.
Right.
Opening the Portal for the Causal Body of God was the title of one of your newsletters. And my husband said, what's the causal body? So what is opening the portal for the causal body of God?
Okay, the causal body is the realms of cause, and we have our own causal body. And the causal body of God has every energy, vibration, and consciousness of the unmanifest divine potential of deity. And what our divine intent was to tap those patterns of perfection and bring them through our thought processes and feelings, manifesting them physically, to expand the borders of divinity in the physical realm, learning to become co-creators.
Okay, now, if you were to give us advice for those of us who would love to open more to the divine plan, and one of my friends is just loves you. She loves your materials and thinks it's just so profound, and the wisdom that you've shared. But what can we do? What is that? Be aware? And what else?
Okay, the most important thing for us to do is to go within to our heart center and begin connecting with our own divinity, whatever we want to call that, our holy Christ self, our divine self, divine consciousness, the God within, the spark of divinity, whatever resonates within us, and begin asking that facet of our divinity to take full dominion of our thoughts, words, actions, and feelings. And then as we lift up in meditation, see ourselves lifting up. You know, when people go through the near-death experience, they pass through the tunnel into the octave of light. The tunnel is the psychic astral realm of human chaos and confusion. So even in our meditations, to visualize ourselves piercing through that into the realms of light and illumined truth, and then invoking divine guidance. We've been prepared for eons of time to accomplish the divine plan we volunteered to do at this critical moment on the earth, and all we have to do is remember.
The website, you have a beautiful entry to your website, and on your website you remind us of some times and dates and things, and what I love is what I call the festivals or the activities of synchronicity, where all over the planet at the same time people are praying for peace or people are working toward the divine, and there is also that energy that we share then with all other beings.
Right, absolutely. It's totally interrelated, and even the activities of light are totally interconnected. And on the website there are many articles, and I've given permission for anybody to share them and reprint them in just so that there's a credit line included so we can all stay connected. But it's the most uplifting knowing of what's really happening on the planet. And I don't mean my particular information, but I mean it's the most uplifting to know these events are taking place. It puts everything in a perspective that takes us out of that fear and limitation consciousness of our lower human ego.
Yes, well, I appreciate so much the work that you have done. I think it's really powerful, and we spoke so briefly today, but thank you.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you, Shakti, for all the light you're adding to the world. Your show is a gift to the planet.
Oh. Now, if people would like to be in touch with you, we always love to share with you how you can reach our guests, and you know we want to hear from you too. So stay tuned, we'll let you know how, and then we will have some closing thoughts. Well, we can take charge of our life, and to live in balance in mind, body, and spirit, we really need to. And what is really fascinating with Patricia and the work that she does is that she reminds us of those things that we really do know, that we can through creative visualization, that we can through setting our goals, through affirmations, all those things we can accomplish, and then we can open to that divine, the divine plan. It can unfold in our own lives, and with that then we can become the highest and the best for our own private, personal plan of the divine. So until next time, I'm Georgia Shakti-Hill. May you be well, happy, and peaceful.